right, to all those that made it to tonight's live stream podcast, welcome. It is Friday, October 12th. I know I'm a little bit late, but I had different plans for what I wanted to do with today's live stream. So, technically, this is going to be a podcast, but I'm going to go ahead and use some of the feedback and questions that you guys have based on the content that I cover in today's live stream. So, I've just decided to title This Week in Wireless podcast live stream. So, got some news from Verizon, AT&T, Sprint. So all the carriers are represented in today's news. Also have some merger news, some 5G material that I wanted to cover, and as with most live streams, I'll go ahead and take any questions or comments or anything that you guys want to cover more towards the end. But as I go through all the topics today, I'll go ahead and just kind of ask for you guys' input. I'll go through the live chat and see what you guys have to say about those topics, and then we could just kind of further the discussion in that method, I guess. So let me just go ahead and finish up here. I got everything going. I got my notes. I have my tablet. So if you guys see me looking off to the side, I'm looking at the live chat, seeing what's going on there. We'll go ahead and get our formal hellos in. So again, welcome everybody to those that made it. Pretty good showing so far. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Give this a like so everybody can get access to it. If you guys give me enough likes there, a lot more people can join us here in the live chat and get access to the live stream. So, Oscar, what's up, buddy? Glad you could make it. Thanks for being here. Mr. Thumbs Up here. Lechason. Not sure how you say that. Berkey, what's up, buddy? Glad you could be here. Oscar, thank you for stopping by. Robert, good to have you. Let's see here. Tap Out King 86. I'm excellent. How are you today, my friend? Cameron, welcome from Utah. Let's see here. Aloha from Hawaii. Lawrence, thank you for stopping by. Big Mo, what up? Glad you could be here. Lawrence, thank you for sharing that on Twitter. I appreciate that very much. Flyboy Rex, glad you could be here, man. New York City represented. What's up? All right, so now that we've got all those formal hellos, and let's go ahead and get started with the podcast. So I'm going to start first with some news coming out of Verizon. And actually, it's kind of bad news. It wasn't that I intended to get started with bad news, but Big Red's up to no good. So bad news coming out of Verizon is they've laid off 44,000 employees of the company, 2,500 jobs transferred to an Indian outsourcer. This could actually, I think the number is probably closer to 5,000 jobs getting outsourced to India. The outsourcer deal itself is worth about $500 million. So this is going to affect about 30% of Verizon's employees. I think this is all part of their 4-year plan in which they're trying to reduce operational cost. I think the plan was set to save them about $10 billion in revenue by the year 2021. And honestly, I feel like this is a very, very short-sighted move from Verizon, but it is a plan that they have had in place for some time now. So I think it's just them coming to fruition and putting the plan in place. Now, the particular people that are losing their jobs or, taking the early retirement money, these are people that have been with the company for 30 plus years. And the reason I say that this was a very short-sighted move is when a person has been working with a company for 30 plus years, that's a very experienced employee. They have seen a lot. They've gone through a lot, different administrations. They've worked in the company at different sectors. They're very valuable to the company because they know how to deal with customers. They know how to deal with administrators. They know how to deal with management. Those are very valuable people. And, up and coming into, the holiday season, these are people that are going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to Verizon customer care and sales and other segments of the business. So again, I think this is very short-sighted. The fact that these jobs are being outsourced to India are a huge loss to the American economy. We are talking about 5,000 jobs here. So very unfortunate to see this. Honestly, though, nobody at Verizon is really going to care in terms of, you think about the money side. The dividends are increasing. The dividends are up. So from, the investor standpoint, this is great news. This saves them money, gets money in their pockets. So to them, it's all about the money, and it's good to them. So while it is sad from a business standpoint of people having their jobs and losing those jobs, the dividends are there. So again, the company is very happy with the outcome. So that's something bad out of Verizon there. I'm not sure how many of you out there really follow American business with that respect, but we like to see American jobs staying here, and we like to see the people our citizens staying employed. Nothing personal against Indian employees. I'm just saying we don't like to see our jobs being outsourced to another country. So yeah, that's kind of sad to see that. Mark, glad you could be here. Thank you for stopping by. Tito, hello. Glad you guys could be here. If I missed you there in the live chat, sorry. I'm just kind of popping in and out of here, trying to cover all the material from the podcast and checking up with everything in the live stream. Jamal, welcome. Glad you could be here, buddy. The next piece of news actually comes out of AT&T. So AT&T is continuing to launch its 5G evolution developments. We now actually have confirmed that there are 99 markets with with the advanced LTE features through 5G evolution for AT&T. What these pretty much are, it's just these are advanced LTE features. So we're talking about the usage of unlicensed spectrum, shared spectrum, which basically makes AT&T's LTE network really, really fast. More cities are seeing, the advancements in these LTE features. It's still technically 4G LTE. I have no idea why AT&T continues to try to trick people and tell them this is 5G. It is not 5G, but it is really fast 4G LTE, which is good. So this is a good sign. It's a good sign that future of their 5G network is going to be very equipped. It's going to have good coverage with 4G LTE, and it's going to be really fast in setup and preparation for 5G. So what we're seeing in these particular locations in these markets is it's a combination of LTE features such as 256 QAM, 4x4 MIMO, and 3 carrier aggregation. There are speeds people are seeing 400 megabits per second, which is great. With that kind of capacity, AT&T is going to be able to bolster a lot of different markets that have, very high population needs. So in places where, you have a lot of people, city quarters, stuff like that, these types of capacities will allow those people to have uninterrupted viewing, very fast streaming speeds, watching, TV shows and different events, being at places like games and being in arenas and coliseums. That should be a non-issue in these particular areas. So it's good to see that AT&T continues to develop and expand these networks. Expansions. First half of 2019, AT&T says that we will see 400 markets with 5G revolution for their customers. So now it does require a certain type of hardware. There are certain devices that have the ability to take advantage of these technologies. So if you have, like, say, for example, a Moto Z2 Force or a Samsung Galaxy S8, S9, Note 9, these types of devices that have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 or newer, so that includes the 845 and then, up and coming the 850 and 855, they'll be able to take advantage of these advanced LTE features. You'll see the 5G revolution, evolution abilities for these phones in those networks. So it's nice to see that the LTE features are expanding. We're getting in more and more markets with them, and a lot of the newer phones should have these abilities. So more and more people will take advantage of this starting next year. Switching over to Sprint, the newly partially deployed Calling Plus feature, which I did a video about this not too long ago. This calling feature that Sprint is, it's basically voice over LTE. A lot of people in the past have always said, Sprint's coverage is shaky. Sprint doesn't have voice over LTE. You can't use your data while being, on a phone call. Well, they've attempted to finally roll out the voice over LTE feature, which is great. I'm glad to see Sprint is making that investment and allowing their customers to utilize this feature. But again, this is the very humble beginnings of this feature, and things have been a little shaky. So what Sprint has gone ahead and done is they're sending out a software update. This is over the air, so a lot of Sprint customers are starting to, get these notifications from Sprint saying that in this next upgrade, you're going to be losing the Calling Plus feature. And again, the Calling Plus feature is voice over LTE. So if you are a person that has Sprint and you've been utilizing the voice over LTE feature, do not download that newest upgradable software update. So don't do it. Now, unfortunately, we're hearing that the voice over LTE has been very spotty and the voice over LTE has not been very dependable. So maybe it's better to just disable the feature, go ahead and download the software update, and just wait for them to roll out the new phase of it where it becomes more dependable after more testing. So it's kind of unfortunate that the feature itself has not been dependable. It's kind of sad to see that people are going to have to backtrack and lose that feature temporarily and hope to get it back soon. But when a feature is only, semi-tested, or it's kind of a soft launch that isn't really working well, maybe it's better that they do kind of disable it, reassess what they need to do to make it work properly, and then send out an update to get it done right in the first time. So it is unfortunate that this is happening, but if you want to continue to utilize the voice over LTE, this calling plus feature from Sprint, make sure that you do not download this update. I had a screenshot of it earlier. I can't really display it here, but I think I might cover it in another video, so I'll put that there and make sure that everybody is aware of that particular update. Now, you can still use Wi-Fi calling, so that's still capable whether or not you do the update or not. So you can still do your data and calling through Wi-Fi, but you won't be able to do it over LTE. So that's what I got there from the carriers, actually. I'm going to go ahead and just pop up into the live chat. I'm going to see what you guys are talking about there, see what your thoughts and opinions are on anything from that Verizon, AT&T, and Sprint news so far. Yeah, Mark Garcia, that's a good point, man. The whole idea of outsourcing, this has been going on for years. A lot of customer care for AT&T, a lot of customer care for Sprint, Verizon now as well. They're outsourcing to India, and it's definitely just a cost thing. They just don't want to be able to have to pay all the money they would to American employees, that they could save that money if they outsource it to another company, especially if it's another nation like India, for example. But what I've always liked, and I've been a Verizon customer for a while, is the language barrier has never been an issue whenever I'm contacting somebody from Verizon, because they are, domestically, located here in the U.S. The ability to explain the problem and work through these issues has always been easier this way. So when you outsource to a place like India, you've got heavy accents, you've got a misunderstanding of the language, you've got terminology that they may use that we don't use, especially regionally here in the U.S. How fast we speak and how slow or fast they speak, and all these things go into customer care. So if you've been a fan of Verizon's customer care recently, I think with this particular outsourcing to India, you may see a huge drop off in customer care. But again, like I said before, Verizon's in the business of making money. They're not necessarily thinking, well, how do we become better at customer care? It's more like, how can we save money on customer care, and how do we get more money into our pockets? So because of that profitability, that's the only thing they really care about. Justin Lane says T-Mobile will have a true 5G nationwide network with Sprint Spectrum. I'm going to be talking about some 5G news later, and also be talking about some of the different spectrum holdings that Sprint has. I'm sure it's going to come up again, but it's a topic we're going to see continuously over the course of the next 6 months as the merger is analyzed, and different angles and things are going on with the approval process. Tap Out King says Sprint is called the roaming network. Yeah, they've been going through a lot of these issues. A lot of times people are using the Sprint network. It goes into roaming, goes into 1G, goes into 3G. It's been an eyesore for sure. People sending me screenshots locally of them using Sprint's 4G LTE, and then it drops and goes to 3G. They really just have not been able to recover after their inability to expand their LTE throughout the nation. That's definitely been an issue for sure. Dan Kank, what's up, buddy? Glad you could be here. DJ Gamer, Landon, glad you could be here, my friend. Justin Lane says T-Mobile has the best customer care. When T-Mobile first started deploying that whole team of experts, it really helped their perception in terms of customer care. When customers are happy, they're less likely to leave, even if it does mean that the cost goes up a little bit. Say like their bill goes up like 2 or 3%, or even up to 5%. If the performance of the network is adequate and the customer care is really good, whenever you call them and you need something from them, it's nice to know that they take care of you, and it leads to you probably staying with them. I don't know if all carriers realize this, but the customer care element is what could separate somebody from coming or leaving or staying with a network. So I think T-Mobile is starting to get that. I think Verizon might be actually losing that in this case by allowing customer care to kind of be outsourced to another country and creating a new issue which they didn't have before, which could definitely affect them in the long term. Let's see here. All right, so that takes care of that. I'm going to go ahead and transition to the next topic. I'm actually going to move over to some merger news. So we've covered everything from the carrier side. Let's talk a little bit of merger. A live stream or a Sneem Mobile Tech video would not be complete without something from the Sprint and T-Mobile merger. So from the merger news, the FCC is using an outside economist to vet the T-Mobile and Sprint merger. The economist, his name is David Sibley of the University of Texas at Austin. He is advising the FCC merger team. He previously worked for the DOJ. He is actually advising the FCC in this particular case. I think what this is they're using this particular person, David Sibley, as a trusted voice when it comes to mergers and acquisitions. He previously worked for the Department of Justice. He worked with the Antitrust Division. This is probably a good sign. That the merger should be analyzed from all angles. I actually kind of am glad to see this. No, I don't know when he worked for the DOJ. I'm not really sure. I don't know if that matters because, if it was Republican Party was in at that time or if it was a Democratic Party at the time. I'm not sure if that matters, but possibly it could. But it could lead to the development of some new concessions. So far from the FCC and so far from the DOJ, we haven't really heard anything with respect to T-Mobile and Sprint as they're merging. Are they going to have to give up anything in order to get this merger to complete? So we don't know if Sprint's going to have to, relinquish, or the new T-Mobile, I should say, is going to have to relinquish any spectrum. We don't know if they're going to have to give up anything from the prepaid side. Those things are still up in the air. They're always going to be looming, but it would be interesting to see if this has anything to do with that. So far, we haven't heard anything on those ends. So if anything like that develops, we definitely want to keep our ears and our eyes open because it affects so many millions of customers. Prepaid needs to stay competitive. The MVNO market obviously is a huge complication in this. There's a lot of smaller regional carriers that depend on, nationwide coverage from these national carriers. So maybe the DOJ looks at that and says, maybe we need to get somebody else in here that could look from the economical side, can look at, how this merger could potentially help the markets or hurt the markets. So I think, not to say that it's going to lead to a re-proposal of the merger, but it could lead to something specifically towards like modifying the proposal, maybe developing some concessions and seeing what happens from there. So I'm not sure what it means in the long run, but I'm going to keep my ears and my eyes open to see if anything comes of this from this David Sibley guy. I don't really know much about him, but this is a new development. So we'll definitely be on the lookout for anything there. The next thing from the merger, apparently there are some new voices on the merger. There are some new supporters that are pro-merger. I guess it's a few groups, actually, some pretty big-time groups nationally. The National Taxpayers Union is one group. They want to see the United States lead the way in technological innovation. That was one of their quotes. There were some other business associations that also voiced their opinions. The Chambers of Commerce voiced their support as well. There were a couple of different chambers of commerce. And, it's kind of interesting here. At the same time, the DOJ and the FCC are requesting books and reports from different carriers. They're asking for, information from AT&T, asking them about churn rates and asking them about their engineering of their networks and asking about their financials and things like that. I think what they're trying to do is I think they're trying to understand what the carrier business is like, what the internet service provider business entails, like what is considered profitable, what is considered proper investment. I think what they want to do is they want to understand Sprint's position, and I think they want to understand T-Mobile's growth as well. I think this is kind of interesting. They want to take a look at the business analytics of successful carriers and then analyze how this pertains to the merger. So it's kind of like I don't know. I feel like this is a really good thing, the fact that they're asking these questions and they're doing their homework on this topic. So I think they're going to look specifically at how T-Mobile has been spending for the last 5 to 10 years. I think they're going to look and compare to, say, Verizon and AT&T because they themselves have been very successful while Sprint has not been. And I think they also want to look at T-Mobile and see, why exactly does T-Mobile want to complete this merger? They've been showing a lot of growth. They've been showing a lot of positive things from the business side. Why do they feel like the merger is a necessity? And T-Mobile has said that they are going to require the merger to compete in the 5G space. Now, that's probably true. We kind of understand that. But from the business standpoint, do they want to approve the merger, just because, or do they want to take a look at it and say, well, we only want to approve this if we know it's going to benefit the American people? So that's kind of interesting to see. We have some new supporters of the merger. We have some new groups coming out and saying, we want to see it happen. We want it to go ahead and be approved. So we'll be on the lookout for any more new voices, any more approvals, any type of developments from the FCC, the DOJ, or any analytics for that matter. So it's good to see that is going on there. Let me go ahead and catch up back in the live chat. I haven't looked there in a while. So let's see here. Mark Garcia says, customer service is really a non-issue for me since I do everything online. You know what, Mark? That might be the case for you, but I'm telling you, there may come a point where you're going to have to get on the phone with a customer care representative. Maybe your SIM card fails, or maybe, the LTE drops off of your phone, and you can't troubleshoot it. You can't figure it out. You try restarting your phone. You try doing this. You try doing that. All the things that used to work for you all of a sudden fail. You may eventually have to call up customer care. And the fact that customer care is able to help you is going to be a big thing. Because I'm telling you, there's going to come a point. There's going to come that day when you need them. And if they come through for you, that's going to be good. And if they don't, you may consider leaving them because of that experience. So while you usually don't use customer care, there's probably going to come a point where you will. Mark, I'm going to get to the Spectrum auctions pretty soon, and I've covered that in previous videos, but it's in today's video as well. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to share with you guys. The next thing I want to share with you guys, I came across a survey. This was a completely online-based survey. I think the business that ran the survey was Repeater Store. I think that's the name of the business. They're a company that makes small cells, and they produce signal boosters as well. They ran the survey, and they actually have some really interesting and insightful data. So here's what they found in their online survey. 59% of Americans are unaware of 5G development by their carriers. So what that means to me is that almost 60% of people don't really understand or know what 5G really is. Or they may know what it is, but they're not really sure of what's going on with their carrier as it pertains to 5G. So the simple fact that only 41% of people are aware of what their carrier is doing with 5G is kind of shocking. I thought by 2018 more people would be a little bit hip. Now, for those of you here in this particular live stream, you're not really this 59%, right? You guys are the 41% that knows what 5G is. You're aware of what your carriers are doing with 5G. But a 59% clip is pretty high. That means a majority of people don't really know what their carrier is doing with 5G. Another interesting thing from the survey, 48% of T-Mobile customers are aware of T-Mobile's 5G efforts. So that means the average cell phone, smartphone user doesn't or is not as informed as a typical T-Mobile user. So I think what that means is that T-Mobile is doing a good job of making it aware to their customers what they're doing with 5G. I think T-Mobile's way out in front of this. They want to make sure that they're promoting it. They want their customers to be aware of the developments of what they're doing with the technology. They also want to do some bragging, right? They want to say, hey, we've got X amount of network expansions in these markets, so people are aware of it, and they feel like a sense of pride with T-Mobile, and they see, hey, my dollars that are being spent with T-Mobile are going into network innovation and network development and deployment. So goodbye T-Mobile doing that. T-Mobile's customers are more aware of their 5G developments than, say, other carriers, which is kind of cool to see. Another interesting stat from the survey, 21% of customers are aware of 5G benefits. Now, that is kind of interesting. That means, 79% of people don't really know what 5G is going to do for them. So The main thing about 5G networks are going to allow for great capacity. It's going to be excellent speeds. We're going to see speeds get up to that whole, theoretical gigabit per second speed. We're going to see excellent capacity. We're going to see really, really low latency. That should be good for gaming. That should be good for, any type of instant connectivity for autonomous vehicles. Anything that is going to need a very instantaneous connection that will be able to provide all of that. And unfortunately, the lack of awareness for 5G and understanding what it is probably leads to that. People don't really know, what benefit does this serve me? Why do I really need to know about 5G? What is it going to do for me? So that was an interesting percentage. And then 62% of Americans are somewhat excited about 5G. Now, most people who are excited about 5G understand the benefits to it. But for those that are not excited about 5G, probably have some reservations. I think the first big thing there is probably health risk. There are a lot of people that understand that when you have a new technology and there hasn't been any conclusive testing that reveals any health risk, they're obviously going to be very hesitant. And I understand that. Like, we think about all the different health risks that we face on a day-to-day basis. 5G being one of those things that's a new technology, we're just not really sure. I mean, there are some people that are very skeptical, and they're going to hold their reservations. And that percentage of people is probably going to be the ones that are going to try to prevent 5G from deploying. They're not going to want the small cells. They're not going to want all of the new technologies to be deployed on their street corners, on buildings, on poles near their homes and stuff like that. So, there's definitely some people that are going to have reservations, and they're concerned about their health, and all of that is valued. All of those opinions are respected. But it's one of those things that we're just going to have to wait and see. And as these networks are deployed, hopefully these issues can be assessed and they can be addressed. So in terms of the survey, I think the bottom line here is, I think, carriers are not doing enough to truly educate and update people, especially their customers, on what they're doing with 5G. I think T-Mobile's probably doing the best job out of everybody. I think Verizon also comes in there. AT&T is doing a little bit. And of course, Sprint wants to go ahead and talk about their 5G, but they can't really do anything until 2019. So maybe they're kind of holding off on mentioning anything until that point. But I think carriers should do a little bit more to continue to update their customers, make sure they're aware of what they're doing for future spending, future development and deployments of their networks. It's just, it's good to have that open communication with their customers. And unfortunately, I think, it's just they have to make it more aware. They have to be more transparent about it and kind of be out in the open with their customers. One last thing from the survey, actually. 75% of the people surveyed said that they are not sure if they will consider fixed 5G once it makes its way to their market. So that means 75% of the people are kind of on the fence, or they feel like they don't know enough about fixed 5G that they would consider it. So the reason that's important is because I think people are always looking for new options for, their home internet needs and things like that. And I think as long as people see the benefit to fixed 5G, they'll be more than willing to try it. And of course, change can be kind of tough on customers. Maybe the simple fact that they know that they would be switching providers from, say, Cox or Charter or Spectrum or whatever, Time Warner, whatever company they have, it's going to be a difficult transition to go from all of that traditional based equipment to new equipment and new installations and new deployments. So maybe they're just a little hesitant to go ahead and jump in head first, but only time will tell. Again, a lot can change. It's only 2018. We're here in the middle of October. A lot can change in January of 2019, and a lot can change in December of 2019. So we'll have to wait and see. Actually, there was a couple more things I wanted to mention. Of those same people that were surveyed, and this is pretty interesting, 10% of people reported poor LTE at home, 12% of people reported poor LTE at work. More T-Mobile customers reported poor LTE compared to those that have Verizon and AT&T. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And 30% of people said that smartphone usage causes cancer. And I thought of 5G instantly with this because, of course, that's one of the main concerns, and that's one of the things that's kind of preventing 5G and small cell deployment all over the nation in certain cities. So that's it from that particular report. Tap Out King says 5G is a waste of time. All they want to do is raise the prices and make more money. Well, to be honest with you, Tap Out King, I have to disagree with you there. And the reason I say I disagree is, you know, the network technology that we are currently using is fine for now, right? Like in 2018, our LTE is pretty reliable. The coverage is pretty good. The speeds are pretty good for the most part. Unless you live in a very rural area, your coverage should be okay. Your speed should be okay. But the problem is as time progresses, as our network demands increase, more and more devices are on our networks, more and more bandwidth intensive tasks are being completed over LTE, the 5G is going to be a necessary component. We have to upgrade our network needs because you're just going to be taxing the network. We want to do more VR. We want to do more AR. We want to be able to have autonomous vehicles connected all the time. That requires a pretty high capacity network infrastructure. We're not going to be able to do it with 4G LTE technology alone. It's going to have to be supplemented. So I know you're saying, and I don't want to discredit what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But as it stands, 4G LTE simply is not enough. It's enough for now, but 10 years from now, for sure, it is not going to be enough. Because 10 years from now, we're talking 2028. A lot can change between now and then. There's going to be a lot of things going on from the connected end of devices. They're just going to need more bandwidth. We're going to have higher capacity needs. Speeds are going to have to get bumped up. There's going to be a lot that we require. So whether we start making the investment now in 2018 and 19, or we start making the investment in 2025, the pricing is going to increase regardless. There's operational costs. There's network infrastructure. Our costs go up based on 4G LTE now. So might as well start investing in newer technologies that are going to benefit us in the long run. So no, I don't agree with you in that, it's a waste of time. It's something necessary that we need as our needs increase. The next thing I want to get to is, I believe this is coming out of the FCC. And it has a little bit to do with the White House. So the last thing for today's podcast live stream, the White House actually held a 5G summit last week, or this past week. They created a FAST plan, F-A-S-T, FAST plan. The FCC had a bunch of representation there. Ajit Pai was one of the people that were speaking there. He was talking about their FAST plan, which is designed to, quote, facilitate American superiority in 5G technology. So there are a couple of pieces that I want to mention, and some of this actually I covered in a previous video, but I think it's good to kind of summarize it, especially for some of the new subscribers here to the channel. So the first thing on this FAST plan, add spectrum for 5G and Wi-Fi, and here are some particular bands that he mentioned. 6 gigahertz, 95 gigahertz for Wi-Fi, changes to the 600, 800, and 900 megahertz bands, 2.5, 3.5, and then the 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz bands. So making those particular additions and changes should kind of benefit, give the network some flexibility in terms of application for 5G networks. Now, the auctions that we're having in the next couple of months, there's going to be one auction, I think it's within the next 90 days, and then there's going to be a second auction, and that's going to be mid-year 2019. So from what I understand, you've got AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile all in on this next set of auctions. They're all going to be putting in their bids on their spectrum. And I thought this was kind of interesting because Verizon and AT&T already have a lot of millimeter wave spectrum. They have a ton of 5G spectrum. But to see the fact that they're going in to get more, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You're going to need a lot of spectrum for 5G networks to make it fast, to make it high capacity. Depending on the application and how the companies choose to deploy it, they're going to need a lot of that spectrum. So it does make sense that they're going back in on this. T-Mobile being a big player in this is important because obviously they want to get 5G in about 30 different markets here over the course of the next 6 to 8 months. So, they've got to be pretty active in this bidding. There are going to be some additional bands that are going to be auctioned as well. 24, 28, 37, 39, and 47 gigahertz. That is going to be auctioned. And I think they're also considering adding band 26 and 42 to these auctions. So if you guys can see, there's a lot of different bands there. That gives a lot of flexibilities to all of the companies. So for example, they can offer like a portfolio of 5G spectrum. They can get a little bit here, a little bit there, gives them some flexibility of application, gets certain markets, fitted with these types of spectrum. Now, the second element to this particular fast plan that the FCC was speaking of, this was the speeding up of small cell operational policies in terms of the approval. I did a video on this, I think, about 2 weeks ago. They're trying to get rid of, the really slow processes that a lot of cities and municipalities are taking, whether or not they're going to approve or deny the installation of 5G tech, especially small cells. So essentially what they want to do is they want to speed up the process. They don't want, the approval or denial of a small cell to take a year. They don't want it to take 10 months. They don't want it to take 6 months. They want it done within like a 30 to 60 day period. Either you approve it or you deny it. Whatever it's going to be, make your decisions so that people can move on with their lives, and the network operator can figure something else out in case it fails or it goes falls through. So that was the second part. And the third part, they are blocking the 5G investment with companies that pose national security risks. And this makes me think back to last year and earlier this year with the issues with ZTE and the issues with Sprint, SoftBank, and Huawei. So, they're kind of still concerned about national security with respect to that. I think that's just the FCC doing their due diligence and basically trying to give people confidence that they're not just going to let anything happen that's going to put the country at risk for any type of espionage or any type of security risk that could jeopardize anything here in the U.S. Now, they kind of, when they were doing their presentations, I was looking at some of the highlights. I think it's pretty apparent that, here in the United States, we want to be competitive internationally, and we know what we need as, these companies begin to deploy these networks. We're going to have high resolution video needs. We're going to have AR and VR development. That's going to obviously, step it up a notch. We're going to see a lot of connected vehicles in the future, probably more so within the next 5 to 10 years. The Internet of Things, we want this really, really low latency. We want high speeds. We have capacity needs. We've got people connected to networks all the time. Just regular usage. Even when people are all bundled up in one place, you need the support. So, all these things have been announced previously. We've known about these things, but the fact that they had this meeting at the White House and there were a lot of important people here attending this shows that people are getting pretty serious about this and they want to know more about it. So, different lobbyists and different representatives, they are now kind of, their ears are perked up. They're aware of what's going on. This is showing progression towards 5G. I think it's good to see the additions to the auctions, expanding the 5G spectrum portfolio so that companies can get their hands on the spectrum, start deploying it. We can start to see people using this technology sooner rather than later. So a lot of times, when I've made these videos and we've been talking about network developments, things improving and things becoming better, it's always been, what are the networks being slowed down by? In some cases, it's been red tape. That's addressed with this plan. In some cases, it's the spectrum needs. That's been addressed with this plan. In some cases, it's been national security risk. That's been assessed in this plan. So all of these things that were addressed in this fast plan are indicative that 5G developments are on the horizon. We've got spectrum auctions over the course of the next 12 months. We're having 2 of them, right? So more and more companies should be able to get their hands on the spectrum and go ahead and get that out and start allocating it in these markets. And hopefully, we're hoping mid 2019, no later than the second quarter. We're expecting mobile 5G very, very soon. So fixed 5G, Verizon's got their own rendition of it. That was available October 1st. We're expecting T-Mobile pretty soon here in the next month or two to have their fixed 5G ready. We're expecting something from AT&T. We're expecting something from the mobile side pretty soon next year as well. So it's nice to see that we're getting some developments and we're getting some news. Very happy for that. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in today's video. So we're about 40 minutes in. I'm going to go ahead and give like the last 15 to 20 minutes just to see what's going on in the live chat and see what you guys have to say, your thoughts and opinions on any of these topics. Acronite 9178 says Sprint is not in the Spectrum auction. I heard Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile are. That's 100% true. The reason that Sprint actually probably doesn't need to get in on these auctions is number one, Sprint's not ready to make much for 5G moves, and the second thing is if they're going to do anything with 5G, they're going to be using the 2.5 gigahertz that they have. So, they're in no rush to get on any type of millimeter wave spectrum. Tap Out King says the 5G phones will be a lot more expensive than what we're paying right now for phones. Uh, I don't know, Tap Out King. That's kind of arguable. And the reason I say it's kind of arguable is because we're currently paying $1,000 for an iPhone. We're paying $899 for a Google phone. Um, Galaxies are $1,000. Like we're already at $1,000. What's the difference if the phone is 1,100? So like if you're gonna finance a phone, whether it's 1,000 or 1,100, what are we talking? What's that a difference of? A couple bucks a month over the course of 24 months. So I'm not really sure. Maybe you're expecting 5G phones to be 1,500 or $2,000, but I doubt it. I think they're going to be pretty similar to what we're seeing now, 11, 1,200. Just kind of depends on the manufacturer and what type of features they have, how many cameras they have, the bill of materials, how much it's going to cost to produce it or make it, what type of processor is in there, that sort of thing. I think that's probably more indicative of that. Landon says at first they might be expensive, but with technology advancing so fast, the cost would drop considerably. And of course, that's up to the manufacturer to pass the savings to the customers. Yeah, that's true. I mean, over time, things will get cheaper. So I remember the first 4G LTE phones, the smartphones. They had horrible battery life. They were poorly connected. There were a lot of shortcomings to the first 4G LTE phones, and they were expensive. But then, over the course of the next few years, it was pretty much mainstream. They became ubiquitous. So the phones themselves were, the prices kind of stabilized. So yeah, it's true that prices may be expensive early on, but then after a while they go down. You know what I'm saying? Everything becomes ubiquitous. They become mass produced, and just the general cost does become more affordable. Tap Out King, I'll go ahead and check out Magic Tech Review, CV Tech. All right, I'll check it out. M. Keller says you may spend $1,000. I pay 400. Screw that. M. Kelleher, for those of you that aren't really sure who that is, he's one of the loyal subs here at Steam Mobile Tech. He's like me. We're not really in the business of trying to spend $1,000 for a smartphone. The only unfortunate thing is in terms of 5G hardware, the first 5G phones are probably going to be flagships. They're going to need, very very high-end technology to make sure that they're 5G compatible. So they're going to be the phones that have the Qualcomm-made Snapdragon 855, 860, 865 type SoCs. They're going to be expensive phones. They're probably also going to have poor battery life because of it being such a new technology. I think what's interesting though, that newer Motorola, I think it's the Moto Z3. It's going to have a Moto mod only compatible with Verizon. It's going to be a 5G Moto mod. So that's kind of interesting. But again, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how dependable it's going to be. I'm not sure how many markets Verizon's actually going to support 5G mobile next year. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'm expecting, $1,000 plus for those first 5G phones. And it's probably going to be like that probably through 2020, 2021. It's probably not until like 2022, 2023, we'll see mainstream smartphones that are 5G compatible. So we're still going to be anchored by 4G LTE. I hope people understand that. 4G LTE is going nowhere. That is what really keeps us connected. The 5G technology is going to be providing the capacity. It's going to be providing those speeds in areas that particularly require it. So, and it's not going to be available everywhere. It's going to be market by market basis, and it's going to be expanding at a pretty slow pace. We're going to see a market here, a market there, 5 markets here, 5 market there. It's going to be a pretty gradual process. Chanel 808 says, I can see a 5G flip phone for people that don't need a smartphone but want a high-speed hotspot 5G flip phones with hotspot. That's an interesting take. Um, that's going to be a pretty complicated flip phone. Most people, when they get a flip phone, they're looking for a very basic, low needs experience. I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing that anytime soon, but it is an interesting idea. All right, so that's pretty much everything I want to cover in today's video. If you guys have anything that you want to talk about, anything that you want to ask about in terms of what's up and coming, I don't really have anything off the top of my head. Those were some of the things that I wanted to cover with you guys. I can see that a lot of you are really excited about the Spectrum auctions that we have for 5G. That's a pretty big deal. The Google phones were dropped this week. For those of you that watched the video earlier, I think it was Wednesday I dropped the video, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, I forget. Anyways, so the Google phone's out. You know, we've had the iPhones come out. We've got the new, Galaxy Note 9 has come out. I'm not really sure what's left to really wait for, but that's pretty much the big players from the smartphone space. So if you haven't updated or upgraded any of your phones, that's pretty much what you're getting for 2018. I'm not sure if you guys are excited for the Galaxy S10. That should be a big release in the spring of 2019. I'm hearing that it might get bumped up to February for a release date. That'll be kind of interesting. It should be a really nice phone. We're not sure if we're going to see an in-display fingerprint scanner. We're not sure if we're going to see the Snapdragon 855. I'm hearing that's going to be the case. We are hearing that there are going to be 3 variants of the Samsung Galaxy S10, and one of them may actually be 5G compatible, which is kind of interesting. A 5G compatible phone with no 5G networks. So we'll have to see what that is. But that's kind of the one that I'm excited about. As for the Google phone that just released, I'm not interested, and I'm a Google phone guy. For those of you that know me and have been here with the channel for a while, I have the Google Pixel 2 XL. I don't really like the new Google phones. I think it's kind of, well, it's not for me. I know some people are going to get them. I know some people like them. If I was going to get one of them, I would probably consider the smaller one, the Google Pixel 3, 5.5 inch. That's probably the one I would look into. It's the less ugly one out of the two. The Google Pixel 3 XL is just a horrible design. I hate that, notch up at the top, that cutout. I know the selfie camera is really, really good. I know it's going to have awesome wide-angle selfies and all that great stuff, but it just doesn't mean enough to me to have an ugly phone. So paying $900 for that particular phone, I think, is not worth it. Even the $799 for the smaller one is not worth it. So price to value ratio is not there. The phone only has 4 gigs of RAM. The battery size isn't going to cut it. I don't know. I have the Google Pixel 2 XL. I'm not going to be upgrading this year. I'm probably going to have to wait. I'm gonna wait until the Google Pixel 4. Hopefully it looks like that, leaked Ultra design that's been coming out. I'd probably rather get that. So, I'm probably not going to be upgrading to the new Google phones, especially at those price points. They're just too expensive. I'm not selling my kidneys for a phone. I've been saying that the iPhones, the 10, the 10s, the 10s Max, even the 10R that's coming out here in like the next week or two, that's just too much money to pay for a smartphone with very little innovation. There's just not enough reason for me to upgrade. I'm not one of those people that's going to just willy-nilly upgrade my phone. Now, if I was a very wealthy person and I had a lot of money and the money wasn't an issue, then yeah, I'd upgrade. But it's just not enough for me to upgrade. I'm hearing that the design is a little bit better in terms of the glass back. Now we have wireless charging. They put Pixel Buds in the box. They've got a fast charger in there. People are saying that the display is like award-winning quality, which is great because the Pixel 2 XL was a horrible display. They're saying all that's great, but yeah, it's not worth it to upgrade. $900 for 64 gig storage phone. That's just not going to get it done for me. Tito asks, what does my shirt say? It says Local Leprechaun. That was one of our sponsors for our softball league a couple of years ago. Mark, I'm with you, man. I'm all about keeping my kidneys. I'll keep my cell phone and keep my kidneys. I don't need to sell my organs just to upgrade my device. It's not that big of a deal. You know what, Landon? I was thinking the same thing. Why would you really need a 5G flip phone since you're just going to be, using the phone as a phone and you're not going to really be doing much for, any type of gaming or app downloads. But I think what the person was saying is you could turn your 5G flip phone into a hotspot that could do 5G, which would make it really, really fast. So if you were computing on like a laptop, right, you could have really good theoretical speeds. All right, so my plan was to give about an hour of my time to this particular podcast and live stream. Uh, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. I do have a couple videos that I got planned for next week. I do have something big for the YouTube side. There's going to be a big video. It's going to take me about 10 minutes to get to everything. Um, I don't know. It's probably going to be somewhere, I don't know, maybe Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. For those of you that are not hip, I have the Sneed Mobile Tech Patreon page, which I'll put a link in the description to this video once I'm done streaming this. I upload there a lot more frequently. I spend a lot more time there in terms of, just working with the community there. We've got a nice group of people. If you guys are, considering the Sneed Mobile Tech Patreon page, I'll put a link in the description below. You can get access to all exclusive content specifically for the Patreon page. It also gets you early release access to some of the YouTube videos as well. So if you want to get more involved with like things like polls, interactions, comments, community type of interactions, that's been really good there. So I'll put a link in the description below for you to get access to the Sneed Mobile Tech Patreon page. I think that's pretty much it for this video. It was really good having you guys there in the live chat. I hope you enjoyed your time here. Again, thank you all for watching and supporting me on the Sneed Mobile Tech YouTube channel. Thank you for liking my videos. Thank you for sharing my videos. Thank you for all the comments in all of the videos. It's great to see the interaction there. I really enjoy what I'm doing, and you guys are the best part of the channel. And again, thank you all for watching and supporting. That's it for this one. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.